You are not broke. You are meticulously engineered to never be wealthy. You are locked in the dead zone, fed exactly enough wages to survive the week, but never enough capital to escape it. You are kept so brutally exhausted by the friction of basic existence that you cannot see the architecture of your own cell. If you refuse to examine this blueprint in the next few minutes, you will permanently remain raw material for someone else's engine. This is the end of your conditioning. This is the beginning of the architect. This is not a motivation video designed to make you feel better about your current position. This is an autopsy, a cold, calculated financial autopsy of the average American living inside the machine. 500 years ago, an exiled man wrote the exact cipher for the game of power, detailing how the architects of society extract value from the masses. That game has never changed. It has only upgraded its software. Today, we are going to surgically dissect the 3 specific layers of the blueprint designed to keep you permanently paralyzed. We will examine the mathematical illusion of your daily wage, the quiet weaponization of your mounting debt, and the lethal sedative of your own middle-class comfort. Only after the diagnosis is complete will we extract the exact Machiavellian protocol required to rebel. But the surgery must begin at the very surface, with the first mechanism that actively holds you hostage, a psychological and mathematical death trap called the linear labor trap. Look at your paycheck. Look at the hours column. If those 2 numbers are mathematically married, you are not an earner. You are a hostage negotiating your own ransom, begging for scraps of paper, just to pay for the privilege of waking up tomorrow morning. You have been systematically convinced that tying your income to your physical presence is the standard operating procedure for a respectable life. It is not. It is the absolute and voluntary forfeiture of your personal autonomy. When your compensation is strictly bound to the ticking of a clock, you are not building wealth. You are liquidating your finite lifespan to purchase temporary survival. The architecture of this trap is flawless because it relies on an unbreakable mathematical ceiling. You have exactly 24 hours in a single, solitary day, and not a minute more. Even if you optimize every waking second, even if you skip sleep and abandon your family, your maximum output is forever capped by the rotation of the earth. You cannot manipulate time. You cannot bend it to your will, and you cannot multiply it. You can only bleed it out, hour by grueling hour, at a price dictated by someone who views you as a disposable line item. They designed it this way so that you can never, ever scale your existence. You are taught to take immense pride in the phrase, earning a living. But no one ever translates what those words actually mean in the real world. They literally mean you are forced to continually buy back your basic right to exist. You are instructed to be grateful, to be a reliable worker, to be a highly moral citizen. You are taught to relentlessly save your pennies, cutting coupons and denying yourself basic joys, while the architects of this system are quietly printing billions on demand. It is a completely rigged equation designed to keep you exactly where you are. Well, you simply cannot outwork a mathematical death trap. Your exhaustion is not a badge of honor. It is the intended output of the blueprint. You are selling your life at a wholesale discount just to buy back heavily taxed fragments of your own weekend. This is not an opinion. This is not a conspiracy theory invented by the lazy. This is cold, undeniable math. Since 1979, the productivity of the average worker has skyrocketed by roughly 90%. In that exact same window, your actual wages have only increased by roughly 33%. Look at that massive, glaring gap. 57% of your raw, bleeding output is missing. Where exactly did it go? It did not just vanish into thin air. It was surgically extracted and transferred directly upward into the deep pockets of the system's architects. This is the pure, unfiltered essence of Fortuna. You are the one producing the value, but someone else entirely is harvesting the crop. You are operating as a peasant farmer on a massive digital estate you do not own. You grip the plow tighter, you push harder, you sacrifice your health, and you work progressively longer hours. But the harder you cultivate the soil, the exponentially richer the landlord becomes. You do not lack effort. You lack leverage. Your celebrated middle-class work ethic is actively being weaponized against you to fuel an industrial engine that leaves you perpetually drained. You have spent your entire adult life quietly believing that you simply have not tried hard enough, that your financial paralysis is a deeply personal failure born from a lack of discipline. It is not. You have tried exceptionally hard, but you have been pouring your vital energy into the exact wrong machinery. You are functioning as a biological algorithm running a script that was specifically coded to drain your daily surplus and feed it to the top. This brutal realization is the first necessary step out of the cage. But the linear labor trap is only the very first layer of the blueprint. Stripping away your present time is not enough to guarantee your permanent, lifelong obedience. The second layer is what truly keeps you trapped forever, because it does not merely steal your current time. It reaches directly forward and violently colonizes your entire future. You think your digit is a personal failure, a temporary mathematical mistake you can eventually work your way out of, if you sacrifice more. Your debt is not a mistake. It is a meticulously designed consumer product, and you are its most reliable, lifelong customer. You have been completely tricked into opting into a permanent state of extraction that we call the debt subscription. They have successfully gamified your basic survival and converted it into a guaranteed, recurring monthly revenue stream. A credit card is not an extension of your purchasing power. It is a mandatory monthly subscription fee for your basic existence. A 30-year mortgage is not a celebrated milestone of homeownership. It is a 3-decade indenture contract, legally binding your future labor to the banking sector. A student loan is not a noble investment in your expanding mind. It is the exorbitant, non-negotiable cover charge required just to step foot into a completely rigged corporate labor market. You are not struggling with debt in the traditional historical sense. You are actively subscribed to a premium service that systematically monetizes your pulse. This is not a clever philosophical metaphor meant to provoke you. It is a brutal industrial reality heavily backed by undeniable, staggering mathematics. Look at the raw, unforgiving numbers. Right now, everyday citizens are violently drowning in exactly $1.277 trillion of outstanding credit card debt, bleeding out month after month at an extortionate average interest rate of 20.97%. Total household debt has recently skyrocketed to an unprecedented, unfathomable $18.8 trillion across the board. These are not the innocent statistics of an economy functioning properly, or people making bad choices. These are the explicit profit margins of a predatory architecture functioning flawlessly, exactly as it was engineered to do. You are taught by your family, your teachers, and your society to avoid debt, to fear it, to aggressively pay it off. But the architects of the system do not view debt as a moral failing. They actively weaponize debt to literally colonize your future before it even happens. By locking you into these complex, lifelong financial contracts, they mathematically ensure that the money you will physically earn 10 years from today is already completely spent, and already claimed, and already safely deposited into their offshore accounts. They have successfully commodified your remaining tomorrows. The system's absolute greatest trick is making you feel a deep, paralyzing shame about this exact arrangement. Someone on the internet will inevitably look at your empty bank account and aggressively tell you that you are poor because you buy a premium latte every single morning or a piece of avocado toast on the weekends. They will confidently blame your tragic lack of personal discipline. Exterminate that specific lie immediately. Here is the actual, documented data. 73% of all credit card debt stems directly from essential, unavoidable survival expenses. It comes from sudden medical bills you cannot ignore, emergency car repairs required to drive to your linear job, fixing a broken water heater in the dead of winter, and buying basic groceries just to keep your family biologically alive. You are not trapped in a suffocating mountain of debt because of a stupid cup of coffee. You are trapped in a mountain of debt simply for the crime of existing. This is the most ancient and highly effective strategy found in the brutal playbook of absolute power. Keeping a massive population in a constant, anxious state of financial dependency is the classic method of imperial rule. The modern prince does not actually need to mandate poverty. The prince only needs to create total, inescapable dependence. They give you just enough hourly wages to barely survive. They charge you an exorbitant financial premium for that exact survival, and then they brilliantly rebrand that premium as your own personal responsibility. They have designed the absolute most beautiful, invisible chain in human history, because the oblivious victim actually believes they entirely deserve to wear it. The quiet shame you feel about your credit score is the exact psychological mechanism that keeps you quiet, compliant, and endlessly working. Your debt is not a disease. It is merely a calculated symptom of a much darker, larger operation. But as completely ruthless as the linear labor trap and the debt architecture truly are, they are still not the most dangerous layers of this entire blueprint. The third layer is the exact reason you have remained paralyzed for so long, because it doesn't hurt. It is comfortable. The most dangerous layer of the entire blueprint is not actually built on suffering. It is built entirely on comfort. The dead zone is not a fiery hellscape where you are actively tortured. It is a climate-controlled waiting room with excellent Wi-Fi. You are kept docile through a highly calculated dosage of the comfort sedative. First, they deploy the entertainment sedation. A premium streaming subscription is deliberately priced just cheap enough to guarantee you are never truly bored enough to incite a personal rebellion. The infinite scroll of social media provides a constant, synthetic simulation of being connected, effectively preventing you from ever feeling the deep isolation required to build something of actual value. They feed you a relentless, microscopic drip of dopamine, keeping you existing in a perpetual state of being just satisfied enough. It is the precise chemical dosage required to ensure your hunger never becomes lethal to their system. Second, they utilize social anesthesia. Look closely at your immediate circle. Your closest friends, your protective family, your daily colleagues, they are all permanently stationed inside the exact same dead zone. Their collective agreement normalizes the trap, transforming your mutual captivity into the standard definition of a completely normal life. If you attempt to step even 1 foot outside that predetermined circle, the social immune system will immediately activate to attack the anomaly. They will brand you as being dangerously obsessed. They will call you inherently greedy. They will tell you that you have drastically changed. Their judgment is not genuine concern. It is the immune response of the architecture trying to violently pull you back into the herd. Finally, the trap is secured through the identity lock. You have deeply intertwined your own personal ego with your current state of subjugation. You proudly tell yourself, "I am an incredibly hard worker. I meticulously pay my bills on time, and I am a highly responsible adult." You believe these are your greatest moral virtues. They are not virtues. They are the actual control software running in your brain. You are drawing immense, misguided pride from the exact behavioral traits that are actively guaranteeing you will remain stuck forever. And that is the final layer. You are not a victim of the system. You are its most loyal subscriber. But here is the cold bucket of water you haven't felt yet. Everything I just described was merely the diagnosis. The autopsy is officially complete. Now, the treatment. To understand the treatment, you must first understand the God you have been blindly praying to for your entire adult life. Machiavelli called this force Fortuna. In the modern financial architecture, Fortuna is absolutely everything you do not control, yet dangerously bet your entire future upon. Fortuna is relying on a generous boss to recognize your hard work. Fortuna is waiting for a scheduled annual raise that barely matches inflation. Fortuna is hoping the housing market stays stable, praying the macroeconomy does not suddenly crash, and desperately crossing your fingers that your biological health does not unexpectedly fail you. Look closely at exactly 90% of the mainstream financial advice fed to the working class. It is completely, totally reliant on the unreliable whims of Fortuna. You are told to hoard your pennies in a savings account, blindly hoping a medical emergency never arrives to wipe it out. You are told to passively invest a fraction of your paycheck into an index fund, blindly hoping the global market permanently goes up for the next 40 years. You are told to quietly live below your means, blindly hoping that the invisible tax of inflation does not completely devour your purchasing power before you reach retirement. This is not strategy. This is surrender. Let us be entirely clear about your current position on the board. Fortuna is a massive, rigged casino. You mistakenly believe you are the player sitting at the table, trying to beat the dealer. You are not the player. You are the chips. You are placed on the felt by someone else. You are moved around by house rules you did not write. And you are immediately swept back into the dealer's tray the second you lose your instrumental value. You are completely at the mercy of statistical probability and institutional grace. You are actively praying for the benevolence of a ruthless industrial machine, and you have tragically convinced yourself to call that prayer a financial plan. You are waiting for the storm to pass, begging the sky to spare your fragile roof. That is the ultimate vulnerability of the peasant mind. The architect does not beg the sky. The architect builds a stronger roof. And that requires a complete, violent psychological shift away from the altar of Fortuna and toward the only code that actually breaks the blueprint. Machiavelli left behind the exact cipher for this rebellion. He called it Virtù. Do not confuse this ancient word with the modern, domesticated concept of moral virtue. Virtù has absolutely nothing to do with being a good, compliant, obedient, rule-following citizen. Virtù is the raw, unapologetic capacity to force a specific outcome completely independent of luck, independent of outside circumstance, and entirely independent of the institutional mercy of others. It is the absolute mastery of asymmetric leverage. It is the disciplined, relentless ability to construct a system where your output violently eclipses your physical input. If Fortuna is a desperate, starving farmer staring at the dark clouds and praying for rain, Virtù is the cold, calculating engineer quietly building an autonomous, indestructible irrigation system. The prince knows he cannot control the unpredictable weather, so the prince systematically guarantees the harvest regardless of the weather. To permanently escape the dead zone, you must fundamentally upgrade your mental software and brutally filter every single action through what we will call the Virtù equation. The governing math is beautifully simple. Total output divided by physical input equals your leverage ratio. For the average employee trapped in the linear labor blueprint, the leverage ratio is permanently locked at exactly 1. You put 1 hour of physical labor in, and you get 1 hour of heavily taxed wages out. It is a symmetrical, perfectly balanced, dead-end exchange. The prince operates in a completely different mathematical universe. The prince ruthlessly aims for a leverage ratio of absolute infinity. The prince builds an invisible architecture where the initial physical input remains rigidly fixed, but the resulting financial output scales endlessly, compounding day after day, without requiring a single drop of additional human sweat. From this exact moment forward, you must interrogate every single financial decision through this merciless new lens. Ask yourself, is this daily activity Fortuna, or is this activity Virtù? Am I waiting for the casino to finally pay me out, or am I actively building the casino? You are no longer blind. You finally see the hidden architecture. You finally see the true pieces moving on the board. But seeing the board is not enough. You need to know the first move, and the first move is the one the middle class fears most, because it requires you to commit the ultimate sin against your own identity. That ultimate sin is the violent, uncompromising act of decoupling. You must violently disconnect the physical hours of your actual life from the financial income you generate. Do not mistake this for the cheap, overly marketed internet fantasy of passive income sold by smiling influencers trying to peddle another online course. True decoupling is not a passive vacation. It is an aggressive, intentional act of architectural rebellion. It is the arduous process of building or legally owning a system where the total output is mathematically divorced from the sweat of your own brow. Machiavelli would refer to these modern assets as mercenaries that do not require sleep. Today, we call it ghost machinery. This is the code you write once that executes 1,000,000 times. This is the digital content you publish once that captures human attention globally for years. This is the deployed capital that works tirelessly in the dark while you are physically resting. Ghost machinery is not an illusion, and it is certainly not magic. It is pure, irrefutable mathematics applied to human labor. You are constructing a fully sovereign digital infrastructure that cannot be paused, fired, or exhausted by the physical friction of daily life. When you clock into a standard corporate shift, you are serving exactly one employer, at one specific time, for one rigid hourly rate. Your leverage ratio is fatally locked at 1. But when you build an automated system, a digital product, or an unblinking algorithm that successfully serves 1,000 different people simultaneously across the globe, you have instantly shattered the ceiling. Your leverage ratio has just violently jumped from 1 to 1,000 without requiring a single extra second of your physical lifespan. You are no longer trading your bleeding pulse for pennies. You have successfully severed the heavy iron chain linking your finite biology to your infinite earning potential. You have constructed a shadow workforce that scales your intelligence, distributes your value, and accumulates your capital entirely independent of your physical exhaustion. This is the only mathematical method to escape the linear trap and permanently reclaim your stolen autonomy. But decoupling alone is not enough. A machine without a protective moat is nothing but a bleeding target in an open, highly contested field. If anyone else can easily copy your exact ghost machinery, the brutal market will instantly commoditize it, driving your hard-earned leverage straight back down to 0. You must implement the second, critical layer of Virtù. You must aggressively establish a monopoly of one. The modern marketplace does not respect your exhausting physical effort. It does not care about your supposedly noble intentions, and it absolutely does not reward your blind corporate loyalty. The market only respects absolute, undeniable irreplaceability. If you are doing exactly what 10,000 other desperate people can easily do, You will always be paid the absolute minimum fraction required to keep you biologically functioning. The prince does not proudly march onto the crowded battlefield of someone else's choosing just to fight a bloody, unwinnable war of attrition. The prince deliberately abandons that crowded field entirely. The prince strategically invents an entirely new game, writes the specific operational rules for that game, and ensures he is the only person on Earth uniquely qualified to play it. You achieve this by fusing your highly specific obsessions, your distinct skills, and your rare experiences into a niche so incredibly narrow that competition mathematically ceases to exist. You stop trying to be the absolute best at a generalized, overcrowded profession, and you start demanding to be the absolute only option in a uniquely specialized domain. When you become a monopoly of one, you successfully strip the architects of their power to compare you, to heavily discount you, or to cheaply replace you. You become the singular, unavoidable toll booth on a bridge they desperately need to cross. You completely eliminate the exhausting concept of fair market value because you are no longer participating in their rigged market. You don't compete. You don't negotiate. You dictate. But the moment your ghost machinery starts printing, the moment your leverage ratio crosses one, the blueprint activates its final defense. And this one does not attack your wallet. It attacks your mind. You have been explicitly programmed by society to feel a deep, burning shame whenever you generate capital without physically sweating for it. The blueprint relies heavily on the guilt protocol to maintain order. Society strictly demands physical exhaustion and constant stress as the only acceptable proof of your moral worth. If you successfully construct ghost machinery that prints money while you sleep, the masses still trapped in the linear labor system will immediately brand you as lazy. They will aggressively call you lucky, or they will accuse you of being a scammer who is unfairly cheating the system. They want you to apologize for your asymmetric advantage. Exterminate that guilt immediately. Sweat is the currency of the peasant. Leverage is the currency of the architect. Once you suppress that artificial guilt, the blueprint deploys the recapture mechanism. The system possesses 3 incredibly efficient, silent assassins specifically designed to absorb any new financial surplus you manage to generate. They are inflation, taxation, and lifestyle creep. As soon as your machinery produces more income, you are heavily pressured to consume more rapidly, artificially inflating your baseline standard of living. You buy the slightly bigger house, you lease the slightly nicer car, and suddenly you are violently dragged right back into the dead zone, just at a slightly more expensive altitude. This is the golden dead zone, and despite the nicer upholstery, it is the exact same cage. If the recapture mechanism fails to drain your capital, the blueprint deploys its absolute most vicious weapon, the social immune response. The moment you actually decouple and visibly escape the trap, the people who are still suffering inside of it will frantically try to pull you back down. It is not because they inherently hate you. It is because your very existence outside of the cage is the ultimate, undeniable proof that they could have also escaped, but cowardly chose not to. You have suddenly become a terrifying walking mirror, reflecting their own lifelong paralysis. Their harsh judgment is not genuine concern for your well-being. It is the immune system of the blueprint actively trying to neutralize a dangerous glitch. But here is the final truth the blueprint never wanted you to see. You have successfully completed the autopsy. You have seen the first layer of the design, the linear labor trap, where the finite hours of your physical life are bought at an extreme, calculated discount. You have seen the second layer, the debt architecture, where your unlived future is violently mortgaged and harvested long before it ever arrives. You have seen the third layer, the comfort sedative, where just enough synthetic pleasure is carefully administered to keep you quiet, obedient, and completely docile. The surgery is over, and now you see the blueprint. You see the entire system. You see the mechanics, the hidden levers, and the brutal math, not missing a single deliberate line. This is the exact moment the illusion shatters. The masters of this system relied entirely on your complete blindness, but you can never unsee what has been clearly revealed to you today. You are no longer the ignorant raw material feeding their massive industrial engine. You are now the dangerous engineer actively analyzing their motor. You are no longer the deeply indebted peasant blindly begging Fortuna for a temporary drop of rain. You are now the strategic mastermind ruthlessly building the endless reservoir. You are no longer the obedient prisoner proudly decorating the interior of a comfortable, invisible cell. You are now the sovereign architect mapping the permanent exit. This is not just the end of your financial confusion. This is the absolute, violent end of your victimhood. You are no longer the prey. You are now the prince. But acknowledging the existence of the trap is merely the preliminary requirement for your total escape. Today's cold autopsy was only the very first step in your liberation. You have clearly seen the blueprint, but recognizing a prison and knowing how to actually construct your own escape vehicle are two entirely different disciplines. You must now begin the rigorous process of reprogramming your compromised operating system. Clicking subscribe to this channel is not a passive request for more entertaining motivation or empty validation. It is a deliberate, uncompromising strategic decision to receive the next required tactical update in your ongoing decryption process. You are securing your permanent position on the advanced board. In the very next tactical briefing, we will take the scalpel to the exact mechanics of Virtu. We will surgically dissect the precise anatomy of ghost machinery, breaking down exactly how to construct the autonomous, unblinking systems that will endlessly accumulate capital while you physically sleep. We will deeply analyze the absolute architecture of decoupling your physical time from your expanding wealth. Until then, you must ruthlessly guard your daily attention and brutally reject the synthetic guilt they constantly try to force upon you. The original blueprint was flawlessly designed to keep you perpetually poor, to keep you physically exhausted, and above all else, to keep you entirely predictable. But the architect has finally woken up, and the architect does not blindly follow their outdated blueprints. The architect burns them. The architect draws their own.